I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Griffin Anderson, the CEO of Phi Labs and the main contributors to the Archway Layer 1 protocol. Griffin, welcome to the show and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks Ashton. Thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. I'm personally very fascinated in new Layer 1 networks, making development of Web3 applications easier and making blockchains faster and cheaper to drive more mainstream adoption of blockchain technology into the real world. I'm super fascinated with what your team's working at on Archway as a Layer 1 network. So let's just dive straight into it. For those who aren't familiar with the network, maybe you could start with what is Archway, what makes it unique, and what is the project all about?
Yeah. So Archway is a Layer 1 smart contracting platform built on the Cosmos technical stack and kind of built into the Cosmos ecosystem. It was first incubated by Tendermint, and for your audience, Tendermint was the private software development company behind the Cosmos chain and Cosmos ecosystem. And so the project was incubated first with the software development company, and then a lot of the core members have spun out into a new company called Phi Labs, with everybody still kind of contributing to the Archway protocol. So Archway is a L1 a smart contracting chain. It uses a WebAssembly as the virtual machine. And what's different though about Archway from like every other L1 is the community is going after a completely different use case than almost every other L1 out there. Every L1 right now today is really focused on oftentimes building a faster blockchain, processing blocks much faster, hitting higher transaction processing thresholds, etc. And Archway community has a little bit of a different vision. They are focused more on the token economics of the protocol and making sure the incentives are aligned with all the different stakeholders that are involved in the protocol. So what makes Archway completely different is Archway actually rewards the developers that are building on top of the protocol through the rewards of the protocol. So similar to how we basically reward validators or miners for running a blockchain, the Archway protocol does that, but it also adds that additional stakeholder, which is the developers building on top, and rewards them as well. And this is, which is kind of interesting and unique. And so the way this works is it's done through three different ways. Part of the inflation or emission schedule that normally just goes to validators or miners, a proportion of that, 25% of that, actually gets shared with the developers that are building on top of the protocol based on usage of their smart contracts. The second way developers can earn rewards is through part of the gas fees. So typically, like on Ethereum, the gas fees are burned. In other protocols, that goes to like the validators or the miners running the protocol. On Archway, 50% of the gas fees get burned, but then the other 50% actually get redirected back to the developers that built the original smart contracts. And then the third way is through something called like contract premiums. It's like an extra fee or reward a developer can set for somebody using their smart contracts on chain. And so what happens is all three rewards get accrued at a specific address that the developer sets. And it can be a smart contract address, it can be a user address. And what happens is they can then you basically deploy a smart contract there and use those rewards in whatever way they see fit for their community. So they could use those rewards to basically fund future versions of the protocol and support kind of the core contributors of it. They could redirect the rewards to a DAO. They could use it to boost liquidity pools. It's completely configurable and up to the developer to decide, what's in the best interest of the community and the protocol and what to do basically with the rewards. And so what's so unique and novel about this is now we can start to have dApps where the developers are earning just like a steady stream of rewards based off of usage of their smart contracts. It just opens up all kinds of new ideas and use cases that weren't previously possible in other L1s.
Wow, that's incredible. And yeah, it's great to have a blockchain that's fast and cheap, but if there's no actual applications that are utilizing the transactions, to actually take advantage of the technology of the underlying protocol, then it's not very good. I feel like there's a huge gap in the amount of developers that are making applications, bringing them out, and actually having hopefully millions of users. I think that daily active users number is pretty low on dApps around all of the blockchains compared to where it could be.
Yeah, and so the vision of where this kind of came from and the community kind of came from, we were looking at building, an application on top of the Ethereum, for instance. And, while that's good and great, the largest and the earliest contributors at Ethereum hold probably the largest amount of Ether. And quite a lot of those folks are no longer contributing to the ecosystem in meaningful ways anymore. A lot of them are hanging out on a quote unquote on a beach somewhere and just chilling. They're not actively contributing to the protocol. And it just seemed wrong, or just like the vision just didn't make sense, like why we didn't also like reward the developers that were building on top of the protocol. And so the idea of Archway is like, a developer can come 3, 5, 7, 10 years later, and if they bring transactions and activity to the underlying chain, they'll also get rewarded just the same way like a validator or miner does, or somebody who holds a large stake in a specific protocol. And so that's kind of where the vision's coming from. And unfortunately, I don't think like Web 2.0, we had like this problem of like the platforms taking a significant amount of the transaction fees. You hear about the Apple App Store constantly increasing these fees and all these problems around that stuff, or YouTube squeezing out margins from, basically contributors on their platforms. And then we like switch to like these Web3 platforms, but like the same problem still kind of exists. Like the largest token holders accrue like the most amount of rewards, and like a lot of the other folks that are contributing to the protocol get left out of the equation. And so we hope that it's not just like the developers that earn the rewards. We hope they also like redirect those rewards back to their user bases, to their communities in a meaningful way. And we're just hoping to get like basically all the other stakeholders that are involved also involved in the protocol as well.
No, I think it's great alignment of incentives, and hopefully more developers move in from the traditional world as well. I feel like there's a lot of millions and millions of developers that have yet to touch Web3 for one reason or another. Being involved in sort of the early stages of Layer 1 development, what are your insights into Web3 developers and where they're at, and how many there are in the world right now, and how many there should be or could be once the Web 2 developers sort of catch up and start working on this area of the internet?
Yeah, I don't have the latest numbers on some of this, especially from the Web3 space. I mean, I can talk to the Cosmos space more specifically. Like within the Cosmos space, there's probably like 30 or 40 core contributors to the actual like core SDK base. It's really not that are actually contributing in meaningful ways. And then, at the dApp side, there's a little bit more, but, it's probably no more than, maybe like 100 developers that are significantly contributing. The Ethereum space is probably closer to like 50,000 maybe active developer community. That might be pushing us as a guesstimate, but that's really insignificant compared to, Web 2.0 developer communities. And so I think we just have a really, really long way to go to supporting, all these third-party developers that are kind of coming into the Web3 ecosystem. And we hope, the Archway community and the Archway Protocol does that exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a great alignment of incentives that I feel like they should have thought of that earlier. Not just rewarding the people that helped at the beginning, but that problem where these app stores in Web 2 and these networks, they're taking a huge cut, and the app creators aren't really getting a lot. Maybe they have their own business model inside of it, but in terms of the transactions on the network, they're the ones who are actually contributing to the growth of the network. There should be some on-chain integration for those dApps to reward for helping grow the network.
Yep, I would say that's definitely the Archway community's like point of view and vision on all this.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows, and obviously creating a Layer 1 network itself, never mind all the decentralized applications on top of it, is a huge initiative. Where exactly is Archway at with the growth and the stages of the release?
Yeah, the community has made tremendous progress. So the community launched an incentivized testnet last summer and went really, really well. There were, I think, close to 9,000 participants around that testnet. So and it stayed up the whole time, so it went really, really well. The community recently got the code base audited by a security firm recently in November and December, so got kind of through that process of things. The next stage for the Archway community is basically to launch the protocol. I think there's talk right now around doing one more public sale and then possibly releasing the protocol based on a vote in Q2 of this year. So it's just kind of right around the corner here in the final stages of launch.
Wow, that's very exciting and great to hear that the testnet is going well. I think that's a very important stage, testing these protocols that will have millions and potentially billions of dollars of value locked into them to make sure that you're not rushing to conclusions just to get it out quickly.
Yeah, it's really important that a lot more engineers kind of go through these audits and security updates. We've seen a lot of hacks happen across a bunch of these protocols. While it's not a silver spoon that completely solves the problem, it's one step to getting some assurances around the code base.
Definitely, Griffin. And I'm curious on the underlying technology of the Cosmos ecosystem. Myself, having been around since before Cosmos and Ethereum, a lot more people are familiar with it. And Cosmos, it seems like a great ecosystem, especially with this IBC interoperability of multiple blockchains, which I think is part of the future. Can you attest to the decision of Archway building under the Cosmos technology and how you see that growing in the coming years?
Yeah, so it's all around this narrative and this theme of going multi-chain and having each network or community running its own self-sovereign chain. And Cosmos was one of the first folks that kind of started on this vision. Sometimes I say Ethereum is like a platform as a service. It's really simple to deploy apps on top and get access to that community. Cosmos had a little bit of a different vision, which was to go out and basically build your own custom self-sovereign blockchain. And the Archway community feels that's a really, really important message, and a lot of use cases are going to need their own custom blockchains, but not all use cases are going to need their custom chain. And so Archway serves that need between how do you access the Cosmos ecosystem without having to spin up your own custom blockchain. So if you're looking for an L1 similar to a Solana or Ethereum or something like that, and you quickly want to build your app and get to market real quickly, you can deploy it on top of Archway and then via IBC access all the other assets and liquidity throughout the Cosmos ecosystem. You can even do cross-chain contract calls, interchain queries, things like that. And so you can access these self-sovereign or app-specific chains that might be building just a one use case kind of blockchain, and it can all be plugged in directly and accessible via the smart contracts on top of the Archway protocol, which is kind of cool. That's kind of the fun and the vision of all this stuff. And so as a developer, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm interested in building another project, what do I build next? You kind of have this design decision you can choose. You can come to a Cosmos ecosystem and you can build a self-sovereign or custom chain. You're going to get full customization over how your chain works and how it's designed. But in the process of building that custom chain, it's going to be kind of expensive and take some time to get to market. But if you're building a really custom solution, maybe it's around a trading use case or something like that, maybe it makes sense to do that. Conversely, if you're trying to just get to market as quickly as possible, build a community, and then possibly sometime down the line migrate to your own self-sovereign custom chain, Archway is really a great entry point into the Cosmos space because you can quickly just build an app, get to market, build your community, and then migrate to your own custom chain. And we've seen that already kind of play out like in other ecosystems. For instance, like the Dapper Labs team that built CryptoKitties on top of Ethereum did this. And then once the community kind of blew up and did really, really well, they had to move to their own chain, which they built, which was called Flow. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's like you start off, build your community, and then as you grow, if you need that like customization down the line, you can always move to your own custom self-sovereign chain. And Archway is kind of like your entry path into the Cosmos if you want to access it.
Yeah, no, that's a great sort of example and analogy. It makes me think of, you mentioned there's a lot of blockchain developers, most of them are on the Ethereum ecosystem, and there's a lot of dApps and DeFi applications being built there. Would they take advantage of these incentives for their app to grow by duplicating it or moving it into Archway when it launches?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to access, just the assets and liquidity in the Cosmos space, in the ecosystem as a whole, including the user base, Archway is a great way to do that because it's just natively will be plugged into, all the tooling and the infrastructure and all the other protocols out of the box. And so you can quickly build a version of your app and deploy it top of Archway and basically start earning the rewards and accessing, the assets and the users and the ecosystem of Cosmos. So we're definitely thinking about going multi-chain and deploying your dApp and your application to another ecosystem. Archway is a great way for you to come in and do that.
Amazing. And as blockchain development continues to grow, hopefully with this aligned developer incentives, it grows drastically. What do you see in terms of this year and the next year, sort of catalysts like this that will help more people start actually using blockchain applications? Do you think something in Web 2 is just people are going to get fed up of it, or is it things like this that it's like we're actually going to help incentivize and bring capital to the developers that create applications? What's going to be that catalyst for mainstream adoption?
Yeah, I think it's around this is me speaking personally. I think it's around the use cases of around these dApps and the protocols. Like DeFi blew up and it's partly supported by the launch of governance tokens. NFTs was through selling of NFTs. I think it's going to be around the same thing, around new accessible use cases where a developer can earn a significant amount of rewards. There's the Archway community sharing a bunch of like online calculators, and like you can basically plug in how many transactions you think your smart contract is going to have, and then you can get a pretty good guesstimation of how much rewards you're actually receiving from Archway, and it's quite significant. It's like no different than running like a large Bitcoin mining operation. These can be pretty substantial stuff, and so, but it obviously is going to be dependent on a number of factors, including just the usage of a developer's individual contracts. But what's so exciting about all this is just the opportunities that it starts to unlock, because now you can really focus in on just like building a really, really good dApp and not having to worry about launching a governance token. So for instance, like there's a lot of dApps that are building on top of Archway right now, and they're not planning to launch a governance token at all. They just really want to focus on building good products and good and that people use. And then maybe down the line they launch a governance token or it's supported by that. But they're really just focused on building stuff that users and communities are actually going to use, and that's where the focus is.
That's beautiful, Griffin. I think it's a great turning point where all these projects don't have to focus on their token and raising it individually to sort of align the incentives of the platform. If the underlying governance coins that are in the protocol, there's that aligned incentive. It just solves like a lot of problems. So I'm really looking forward to the mainnet launch and checking out the applications when they go live and things like that. What are sort of the next steps for Archway to get to that point in the coming months? It's just around the corner here. So I think one of the things is getting through the public sale that the community is going to launch here pretty soon. And that would be kind of one of the last milestones. Look, this is a great opportunity to get involved in the community.
I know Mainnet is just right around the corner in Q2. So it's a good opportunity to kind of come in and start, reading up on the documentation, joining the community, joining Discord, getting involved, and learning about the protocol a little bit more and the opportunities for developers and end users. And so this is a great time to just like get in and get access, and maybe an idea will be sparked.
Love it. And I can leave the links to Archway and your socials as well, and the Twitter and Discord in the description box below, so that the viewers can join in there and check it out. I really appreciate you coming on, Griffin, and giving your insights into Archway and just aligning the incentives of the blockchain ecosystem to continue to grow. So thank you for what your team is working on, and looking forward to seeing the mainnet launch. So let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ashton, for having me on.